Hey buddy, so the theory of dark launch. Let's say you have released a new feature, or let's use a launch word, let's not use a release word. Let's say you have launched a new feature on production website. Now that feature is not live for everyone. Actually it is live but not visible to everyone. That means you are keeping those audience in the dark because they can't see that feature. They are still not able to access that feature. And for that reason, we are calling it dark launch. Why? Because that feature is still not visible to your audience, and that is the only reason it is being called as dark launch. Now, what are the benefits of dark launch? Right? When actually you need to go for this strategy where you need a dark launch, right? And the third thing, when actually you think that okay, now enough of dark launch, I really need to go the real launch, when we have to decide that. So let's talk about all these things in detail. So when to go with the dark launch? What are the use cases? The first use case is user feedback. So let's say you have launched a new feature on production. Now you're not confident whether these users are really going to like your new feature or they're just going to throw that in dustbin and they're not going to use it. So what do? You release that feature on production, but you don't make that feature live to everyone. What you decide that you will make this feature visible only to some audience. First you go with 1%, then you collect the feedback. You analyze the report that okay, 1% audience is really liking this feature, they are using this feature and you are collecting good feedback. Then you increase that to 3%, then 5%, and then gradually you increase to 100% if everything goes well. If every users or most of the users are really liking it and they are giving good feedback. So that is the one use case when you are not sure if this feature is really worth. So you decided to collect the user feedback, and if you are satisfied the user feedback report, then you actually make that feature live from dark launch to live. Second use case is performance load. So what it means? So you release a new feature, but you really wanted to understand that if this feature is going to target this many audience, is it going to impact the performance of my website, my system or not? So again, same strategy, right? You make that feature live for some specific audience. You collect the data for performance, and when you're satisfied with the performance is actually good, and the system is not went slow after this feature release, then you can go with the real launch instead of dark launch. But in case the system really goes slow, then you will go with the optimization, right? You will just roll back that feature. You are not going to make that feature completely live to 100% audience. You're going to roll back that feature, right? Now the third thing is for your marketing. Let's say you wanted to sell new feature to some of the clients. Now that client only interested on your production website, not on the lower environment with some real data, right? So what happened in that case? Market team comes to your organization or to you that hey, I wanted to demo this feature on production to my client, right? So please design something in a way that I can demo this, but without impacting any users, without letting other users know that this feature is live, right? So what do? At that time, you make that feature, you launch that feature in the dark and only available that option to your marketing. So market team can complete their work, can go for their demo and sell the product, right? Okay, now the other thing is code optimization. Let's say there is a code which is like from last 5 to 10 years or maybe 3 to 4 years, right? So like 100 of files and like 100 lines of code in one class file. Now you have been assigned a task that do the code optimization. What you will do? You will for sure start analyzing, finding the area where actually you need to write the code, and you will start optimizing the code. But after you make it live, you will still be in doubt that is this going to behave in the same way, the way it was behaving in the legacy code or not. Just to make sure you are not changing the behavior, you can make your feature this code optimization part in dark launch, and you can compare the result of the old and the new code, and if the result is okay, there is no complaint for some time, you can just go from dark launch to real launch. Or if there is a complaint or the result is not okay between that old and the new code, you will just come back, right, and just roll back that feature completely and will start working again, right? Other way. Now there is one more way that we call it parallel run feature. So what you do over here, you run old code and new code parallelly, right, with just if else condition. You read some flag value, right, in your code and decide, hey, I wanted to run the new code or old code. These days Microsoft is doing the same thing. Whenever they launch a new feature over Teams or Outlook or any of their software, they place one toggle button. That is something called feature flag, also called feature button. So they will ask you, hey, do you want to switch to new Outlook or do you want to switch to new Teams? You just toggle yes or no, right? So that means if you don't like the new feature, go to old feature. If you liking that, then keep continue working on the new feature. Okay, so these were the use cases where we actually go with the dark launch. Now, different strategy to implement. The first strategy and the famous strategy that everyone uses, that is called feature flag, right? So what is feature flag? Feature flag, there is no user interface to control the new feature or old feature switch, right? So what happened? If you look at my Visual Studio, you will see you can use either web config or app setting.json file or any file from where you really wanted to access the configurations values. So over here I have app setting.json file, right? Over here, this is the common standard practice, the way this feature flag has been implemented, right? Or the people are implementing feature flag. So you have to introduce one node called feature flag, right? Inside that, you are going to create that list of flags, right? Because over here, you're going to write down as many as feature flag you require. So inside that, you have one node of first feature flag, you have the other node of second feature flag. Now, if you see, this is also common practice. First, you put a name. What will be the name of that feature flag? In our case, I'm saying, hey, display on iOS, right? That this would be more of the technical name. One more node over there, friendly name. Over here, you will write down something user-friendly name, right? And then description, more detailed description in paragraph. Now, this would be the value that is going to help. That do you really want to make that feature live or not, right? If this is true, make it live. If this is false, don't make that feature live, right? So in my case, I'm saying display on iOS. Whatever this feature is, dynamic Azure Search configuration, I want to make that live on iOS because the value is true, right? Is feature available on iOS? The value is yes. So that way you can keep adding your as many as flag you need in your code, and parallelly the same flag you will read in one of your class file. You will read this node, you will access with the name, and then you will see the value is true or false. According to if else condition, you will make that feature available to audience or not. Otherwise, that is going to be dark launch if the value is false, right? The second strategy UI interface. So in the UI interface, you provide one user interface to one user, and this user could be your administrator of that website. He will decide if the reports and everything looks perfect, he will just switch on that button, right? Toggle button, true or false, right? If the report is negative, he will just roll off that feature without even rolling the release. Release can be rolled off later, but that admin will decide from that user interface that you wanted to switch back my website in the old way because people are really not liking this new feature. So the third way is query string, right? So in the URL, if you can see this URL, this would be some of your base URL, right? And over here, you will decide the name of that feature, right? Let's say this is new feature, any feature you can name it. Now, if the value is true, right, whosoever have this URL, right, that I wanted to mark this feature as true, Those options or those screens are only visible to those users who have this feature flag true in the query string, right? So that means send this URL to marketing team, your scrum master, your product owner, your dev team, or your client that hey, this feature is live on this URL only. Just go ahead, perform some testing, give me some feedback. If everything look good, I will make this feature from dark launch to real launch. But for now, this is just in the dark launch. This is not visible to the real users. Only the users who have this value true in their URL, only those people can access this feature, right? Other people are in the dark launch. Okay, now the big question is when to make dark launch as full feature launch. Now the answer you already know. So just launch a feature in the dark mode or dark launch if you are not confident that this feature the real user are going to like it or not. Is this really going to slow down your system, or after the code optimization the output is going to same? No, just launch your feature in the dark, collect user feedback. User could be your 1% audience, 2% real audience, or your QA team, your client, your customer, or your product owner, or your internal team, right? Now as per the report, if you have the positive feedback, just make that feature from dark to real life, right? So no audience needs to go and put something in the query string and then only that feature is available. No, just launch a new release, right? Trigger a new release without that query string option and make those features available to everyone, right? And if the report is not okay, right? If the report was not okay, then don't make that feature live. Just roll back that feature, work more on that feature, collect the feedback, and then make that feature live. Okay, so that's all for today's video. I will see you in the next video.